February 4, 2010. Time, 7:47 p.m. A surveillance camera mounted outside a neighbor's house in Fallbrook, California, captures a faint, grainy image, the undercarriage of a vehicle slowly pulling out of a driveway. It was the McStay family's car. And that would be the last confirmed sighting of Joseph, Summer, and their two young boys, Johnny and Joseph Jr. They didn't pack bags. They didn't say goodbye. And they didn't come back. Inside their home, 2 bowls of popcorn sat untouched. Their beloved dogs were left in the backyard without food or water. There were no signs of forced entry. No struggle. Nothing broken. Nothing missing. It was like the McStays had evaporated into thin air. For years, their disappearance haunted the tight-knit Southern California community. Friends and family were left grasping for answers while authorities chased dead ends and whispers of sightings across the border. But in November of 2013, a biker riding through the Mojave Desert stumbled upon a shallow grave just off a remote road near Victorville. The mystery wasn't over, but the search was. What followed would uncover a story laced with betrayal, greed, and a level of brutality that shook even seasoned investigators. A trusted business partner. A family wiped out. And a brutal crime hidden in plain sight. Before we get into the chilling details, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love seeing our true crime community all over the world. To anyone looking in from the outside, the McStay family lived a peaceful, simple life in the hills of Fallbrook, California, a quiet, semi-rural town in San Diego County. Joseph McStay was 40 years old. A hands-on entrepreneur, he ran a successful online business called Earth Inspired Products, which sold custom water fountains. He was known for being hardworking, kind, and deeply committed to his family. His business was growing, and by all accounts, he was living the dream. Building something meaningful from the ground up while working from home. His wife, Summer McStay, was 43. Friends described her as vibrant and protective, especially when it came to her children. She sometimes went by her middle name, Johnny. Summer had a creative side. She had once worked in real estate and dabbled in interior design. While she'd faced some personal health issues in the past, those who knew her said she was doing well. Nothing stood out as alarming. Then there were the boys, Johnny, and Joseph Jr., the kind of kids who brought energy into any room. Loud laughter. Little feet running through the house. Pure innocence. Neighbors often saw them playing outside, full of life and wonder. The family had only recently moved to the Fallbrook home. It was supposed to be a new beginning. A fresh start. They'd left behind a cramped condo in San Clemente for a larger home with room to grow. The place needed some work, but Joseph was hands-on. They were making it their own, step by step. Joseph worked from his home office while Summer cared for the children. It was a tight-knit household. They were in regular contact with extended family. Phone calls, emails, photos of the kids. There were no signs of struggle, no major tensions. Just a young family settling into their life. And then, radio silence. No calls. No emails. No updates. For a family so connected, the sudden stillness was the first crack in a mystery that would only deepen. February 4, 2010. It's a Thursday evening in Fallbrook, California. At 8:28 p.m., Joseph McStay makes what would be his last known phone call. On the surface, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But by the next morning, the McStay family had gone completely silent. Inside the house, the signs were subtle at first, but deeply unsettling. A carton of eggs sat out on the kitchen counter, spoiling. 2 bowls of popcorn, uneaten. The family's 2 beloved dogs had been left outside with no food or water. Joseph's prescription glasses, Summer's personal belongings, their children's toys, everything was still in place. But the family was gone. No sign of forced entry. No blood. No broken glass. No struggle. Nothing stolen. Then, on February 8, just 4 days after the McStays were last heard from, their white Isuzu Trooper was located in a parking lot in San Isidro, near the U.S. Mexico border. Inside the car, no sign of the family. No fingerprints or obvious evidence. Just a vehicle, abandoned. Investigators reviewed surveillance footage from the border crossing, and one clip in particular caught their attention: a family of 4, walking hand in hand into Mexico. The video was grainy. The faces unclear. But authorities floated the theory: had the McStays left voluntarily? It didn't sit right with those who knew them. Joseph's brother, Michael McStay, had been trying to reach them for days. No calls. No emails. No word. Finally, on February 15, he drove to the Fallbrook home and entered through an open window. What he found was silence. The house was cold. Lifeless. The dogs had been left unattended for over a week. And the fridge, full of untouched food. Michael later said, "I knew something was wrong. They would never just leave like that, never." Still, without any clear evidence of foul play, authorities were left with more questions than answers. Had the family really decided to vanish on their own? Or was something much darker at play, something hidden beneath the surface of that quiet, suburban life? As the weeks turned into months, and months into years, investigators tried to piece together what happened to the McStay family. But the trail was thin, and what little evidence they had raised more questions than answers. The first clue came from a surveillance camera at the border crossing in San Isidro. Just 2 days after the family was last seen, a video showed a man, a woman, and 2 young children walking hand in hand into Mexico. Authorities couldn't confirm the identities, but the resemblance to the McStays was enough to spark headlines. For a time, investigators leaned into the theory that the family had crossed voluntarily. This theory seemed to gain traction when police searched the family's home computer and found web searches related to traveling to Mexico with children. It was plausible. But to many, it just didn't add up. Joseph McStay's business was doing well. He had future orders lined up. There was money in the bank. And Summer had never expressed interest in uprooting the family without telling anyone. No one close to them believed they would have left on their own, especially without their dogs. Still, the list of theories began to grow: a planned disappearance, foul play, maybe even a business deal gone wrong. Investigators began digging into those closest to the family. Summer McStay was briefly scrutinized after investigators learned she sometimes went by her middle name, Johnny, and had changed her name legally. There were also some online search queries made on her computer that raised questions. But nothing concrete linked her to anything suspicious, and that line of inquiry was closed. Joseph's ex-girlfriend was also interviewed. She had moved on with her life and fully cooperated with investigators. She was ultimately cleared. But one name kept coming up: Charles Chase Merritt. Joseph's business partner. Merritt had helped fabricate and deliver custom water features for Earth-inspired products. He was reportedly the last person to speak with Joseph by phone on the evening of February 4th. At first, he seemed helpful. Cooperative. But soon, his stories began to shift. He claimed he hadn't been close to Joseph in the weeks before the disappearance, then later admitted they'd spoken the night they vanished. His emotional reactions were inconsistent. Investigators took note. Despite these red flags, there was still no hard evidence tying Merritt, or anyone, to a crime. The McStay home was pristine. Too pristine. No signs of forced entry, no signs of violence, no fingerprints or DNA indicating a struggle. Cell phone pings were inconclusive. Surveillance footage in the neighborhood showed nothing suspicious. The investigation dragged on. Tips slowed to a trickle. Public interest faded. And for over 3 years, the case sat idle, an unsolved mystery marked by silence and frustration. The McStay family had vanished into thin air. And it seemed, for a time, that they had taken the truth with them. November 11, 2013. A motorcyclist riding through the Mojave Desert, just outside Victorville, California, veers off a remote trail. What he sees next stops him cold: skeletal remains, partially buried in a shallow grave. San Bernardino County Sheriff's investigators arrive at the scene. Nearby, they uncover a second grave. The contents are chilling. 2 adult skeletons. 2 more smaller ones. The remains had been exposed to the elements for years, yet evidence survived. Forensic teams get to work. Days later, it's confirmed through dental records and DNA testing. The remains belong to Joseph and Summer McStay, and their 2 young sons, Johnny and Joseph Jr. More than 3 years after their disappearance, the McStay family had been found. But they weren't lost in Mexico. They were buried in the California desert. Cause of death: blunt force trauma. A 3-pound sledgehammer was found buried in the same grave as the family. It appeared to be the murder weapon. With this horrifying discovery, the case reignites, and the FBI steps in. The focus shifts immediately to someone who had long been on the radar: Charles Chase Merritt, Joseph's business partner. The last known person to speak with him. Investigators begin pulling financial records, and what they find is damning. In the days following the family's disappearance, Merritt wrote over $21,000 in checks from Joseph McStay's business account. The signatures were forged. The money was withdrawn quickly. It was clear Merritt had access and opportunity. Then came the phone records. Cell tower data placed Merritt near the McStay residence on the night they vanished. Even more damning, his phone had also pinged near the shallow graves in Victorville around the time investigators believed the bodies were buried. What had once been a case shrouded in uncertainty was beginning to unravel, fast. November 7, 2014, nearly 5 years after the McStay family vanished from their Fallbrook home, Charles Chase Merritt is arrested by San Bernardino County authorities. He is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. The evidence, investigators said, told a clear and calculated story. Merritt, they alleged, murdered Joseph, Summer, and their 2 young boys, Johnny and Joseph Jr., out of greed and desperation. And he did it with a sledgehammer. As the case moved to trial, the courtroom became the stage for one of California's most closely watched murder trials in years. Merritt, defiant and confident, chose to represent himself for parts of the trial. He dismissed multiple attorneys, clashed with the judge, and insisted he was innocent. The prosecution, however, laid out a meticulous timeline. They presented forged checks, over $21,000 written from Joseph McStay's business account after the family disappeared. Experts testified that Merritt had signed those checks himself. Cell phone records placed Merritt near the McStay home the night the family vanished, and again near the burial site in Victorville. Forensic accountants showed the financial trail. GPS data backed the movement of Merritt's vehicle into the desert. The case painted a picture of a man who was in financial trouble, who feared being cut out of a profitable business deal, and who took brutal measures to protect his own interests. Merritt, in his defense, claimed he was being framed. He pointed to other potential suspects. He even suggested cartel involvement. But the jury wasn't convinced. In June 2019, after months of testimony and weeks of deliberation, Charles Chase Merritt was found guilty on all 4 counts of first-degree murder. In January 2020, he was sentenced to death. Outside the courtroom, Joseph's brother, Michael McStay, spoke to reporters. His voice was steady, but emotional. "We waited nearly a decade for justice," he said. "We finally got it." The disappearance and murder of the McStay family gripped the nation. A loving couple, 2 innocent children, gone without a trace. No forced entry. No cries for help. Just silence. For over 3 years, there were no answers. Only questions, theories, and heartache. Then came the discovery in the desert. The shallow graves near Victorville shattered the hope that the family had simply vanished by choice. And when the arrest came, it wasn't a stranger. It wasn't someone lurking in the shadows. It was someone Joseph McStay trusted. His business partner. A man he spoke with the night his family was killed. But even now, years later, the case still leaves many uneasy. Why was there no sign of a struggle? How could a family of 4 be murdered and removed from their home without anyone noticing? Was this truly about money? Or were there deeper tensions behind closed doors, resentments that never made it into the spotlight? Charles Merritt sits on death row. But for many, the story doesn't feel fully closed. What do you think? Did the evidence against Merritt truly prove beyond doubt that he acted alone? Or is there more to this story that remains buried? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story as disturbing and thought-provoking as we did, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep true crime stories, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next on this channel.